My name is Derek. I knew it before he even said the words. The invitation to lunch wasn't casual. Not from someone like Preston Campbell, the kind of CEO who only takes meetings in calendar blocks. Never in restaurants with white tablecloths. He ordered the filet. Medium rare. Of course. I just had a glass of water. Derek, you've been essential, he said. Cutting into the steak like this was a toast, not a termination. But the board feels it's time for a new direction. Someone who can take us into the future of tech. Translation. You're being replaced. Real translation. Harrison's nephew just finished grad school, and we'd rather pay him half than keep you around. I nodded, as if hearing about a weather forecast. These things happen, I said, calmly, genuinely, because they do. And because I'd seen this moment coming for months, the quiet meetings I was left out of, the sudden audits of systems only I understood, my access to board folders disappearing without explanation. It wasn't anger that washed over me. It was confirmation. Preston looked relieved that I wasn't causing a scene. He slid a non-disclosure agreement across the table like it was a dessert menu. I signed it without blinking. You'll have 6 weeks, he said. We'll announce after the quarterly meeting. I smiled, shook his hand. I get it. Business is business. And just like that, 11 years of building Riverton's tech division from duct tape and obsolete machines to a fully operational 24/7 digital infrastructure ended over a steak. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been preparing too. You know, sometimes stories like this don't just come to you, they find you. If you're still here, still listening, maybe it's because you recognize something. Maybe in Derek's quiet nod. You heard your own. This is Voices Stories. And we'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment. Let us know how this one's sitting with you. And if it stays with you after the video ends, maybe consider subscribing. Quiet stories matter too. I didn't move to Milwaukee for the job. I moved for Ellie. Back then, life was all forward, motion full of plans. Notebooks filled with sketches of possible futures. She got into grad school here, and I packed up a comfortable life in Minneapolis like it was nothing. A decent job. Good benefits. A team I liked. I left it all behind, because love tells you things will work out. And I believed it. We were young, hungry for something that felt bigger than ourselves. I thought I'd find a new gig easily, something in security. Maybe freelance, while she chased research papers and late-night labs. For a while, that was enough. Evenings spent in cramped apartments, dinners from takeout boxes, laughter echoing off bare walls. That kind of togetherness felt like a fortress, one built on faith. And then, it wasn't. 7 years in, no fights, no shouting. Just one afternoon, a folded stack of papers on the kitchen counter. Divorce documents. We want different things, she said. That was it. No warning. No second chances. She didn't cry. I didn't yell. We both just stood there, stunned in the silence. You always imagine the end of a marriage as loud, messy. But sometimes it's just quiet. Like something slipping beneath the surface and never returning. I ended up on my brother's couch, one suitcase, one cracked laptop, and a head full of static. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think. Some nights I'd walk the blocks around his apartment in circles, trying to make sense of how you can love someone so much and still lose them. That's when Riverton called. They didn't find me. I found them. A job posting buried in a half-functioning career portal. Urgent need IT lead to help stabilize network after cyber attack. Desperate would be generous. Their entire operation had gone dark after ransomware locked down their outdated systems. No backups. No protocol. Just chaos. But I saw something in it. Not just a lifeline, but potential. They needed someone to plug holes. I gave them a blueprint. What they wanted was survival. What I gave them was structure. Order. Hope. They didn't expect much from me at first. The day I walked into Riverton's headquarters, everything felt like it was held together by duct tape and last-minute prayers. Their IT department was 5 people, 3 of whom barely knew how to reset a router. The main server room looked more like a storage closet. 1 fan. No ventilation. No security. Their network had been knocked out by ransomware the week before. Production lines were frozen. Phony systems down. Executive is panicking. And they hired me, the guy still living on his brother's couch, to patch it up. I didn't tell them I was only planning to stay a few months. Honestly, I didn't know how long I'd last either. But then I saw it. The scale. This wasn't just about rebooting machines or installing firewalls. Their entire operation, hundreds of jobs, millions in hardware, was running on outdated, vulnerable code. They were one power surge away from collapse. So I wrote a plan. Not a band-aid, a blueprint. 5 years. Network overhaul. Infrastructure redesign. Backup protocols. Fail-safe systems. I pitched it to Preston directly. I figured he'd laugh, or at least shrug me off. Instead, he gave me a budget and said one thing I'll never forget: just don't let us fall apart again. So I didn't. For 3 years, I barely saw daylight. I rebuilt every network node, installed temperature-controlled server racks, designed custom backup architecture, trained staff, wrote documentation from scratch, launched internal firewalls, endpoint protection, real-time alert systems. We became the only plant in the Northeast that stayed online during the blackout, while other companies scrambled in the dark. Riverton kept running. The board noticed. Suddenly, I was no longer that it guy. I was the reason clients kept their delivery dates. My team grew. I hired good people, not just smart, but sharp, intuitive. Vanessa, who had a mind for systems and a spine of steel. Luis, who could spot bad code faster than anyone I'd seen. We weren't just a help desk anymore. We were a backbone. And I'd finally built something that felt like mine. The first sign didn't feel like sabotage. It felt procedural, innocuous. A consultant showed up one morning, no heads up. No calendar, invite. Just a stranger in a pressed shirt, holding a clipboard and asking about our systems. He asked questions, basic ones about architecture. I had designed line by line. I asked who authorized the audit. He smiled, said, "Executive leadership," and then casually changed the subject. That's when something shifted inside me. Not panic, not yet, but a quiet, slow turning of gears. Over the next few weeks, small things started slipping. Access folders I used every day were suddenly gone. My invite to the board's strategy session vanished from my calendar. When I brought it up to Preston, he waved it off. Streamlining access was his phrase. Then December came, and Preston canceled our weekly meetings. Every time, there was an excuse: travel, urgent calls, scheduling conflicts. At the annual New Year's leadership retreat, I overheard Harrison, the majority owner, talking to another exec, his voice full of pride. "My nephew's graduating this spring," he said. "Brilliant kid. Tech companies are fighting over him." I should have connected the dots, but I didn't, because when you've built something brick by brick, it's hard to believe they just hand it over to someone new. Then Vanessa pulled me aside. She had just come out of a strategic planning session, a session I should have led. They were talking about future infrastructure. She said, "When I mentioned your name," Preston changed the subject. Quickly, she looked at me, uncertain. Something felt off. Like they were building a plan around you, or without you. I wanted to brush it off, pretend it was a scheduling fluke. But deep down, I already knew. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with knives. It comes with silence, and missing invitations, and a slowly shrinking circle around your name. It was just past 7 p.m., and the building had gone quiet, the kind of silence that only hums beneath fluorescent lights and cooling fans. That time of evening, when even the vending machines seemed to sigh, the server room had always been my sanctuary. The one place no one bothered me, No one questioned what I was doing. Rows of servers blinked steadily, breathing in low whirs like sentinels. This was my space. My rhythm. 11 years of late nights and quiet victories lived here. I ran my hand along the edge of the main console, a gesture I'd done 100 times. But tonight, it felt different. A strange stillness settled in my chest, the kind that comes before a storm, or an ending. Then I heard footsteps. Soft, confident, not hurried but not unsure either. The kind of walk you have when you believe you belong. I turned around, and there he was. Nathan Blake, Harrison's nephew. The man who would replace me. Clean cut, polished. Not a single hair out of place. His watch probably cost more than my car. He wore his confidence like a pressed shirt, tailored and deliberate. Just doing a walkthrough, I said, keeping my tone neutral. You need something. Getting the lay of the land. He replied, stepping into the room like he already owned it. Preston mentioned you'd be showing me around soon. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Nathan looked around the server room, hands in his pockets. Impressive setup, he said. Bit old school, but solid. Old school. That stung more than I expected. I upgraded these systems 8 months ago, I said evenly. He nodded. Yeah. I've been going through your documentation. It's thorough. I have some ideas for modernization. He said it like a favor, like offering to repaint a house someone else built with their bare hands. I'm sure you do, I said. After a moment, he turned to leave, as casually as he had entered. But I didn't move. I sat down at my workstation, opened the system logs, and what I saw made the hairs on my arms rise. Nathan's admin credentials had been created 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before my lunch with Preston, he had full access, not just to daily operations, but to everything. My documentation, my protocols, my custom-built monitoring systems. He'd been studying my work in silence, preparing to replace me before I even knew he existed. It wasn't just succession. It was extraction. I pulled out my phone and texted Luis. Can you meet tomorrow before work coffee at Joe's? Luke Sancher. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove to the lake, the same spot Ellie and I used to sit in our younger, more hopeful days. The sky was a flat stretch of gray, winter thick in the air. I parked the car, engine off, and just stared at the water. I thought about the day Preston promoted me to director. You're the backbone of this place, he had said. Turns out, even backbones can be replaced, especially when no one remembers who built the bones to begin with. Have you ever had a moment like that, when you realize someone was already walking into the space you built before you even knew you were leaving it? Here at Voices Stories, we don't just tell stories. We listen to the quiet ones, the hard ones, the ones you carry with you after the screen fades. If something in Derek's story echoes with yours, tell us. Where are you listening from? What part of this journey hits home? And if you'd like to keep walking with us through the rest of this story, you're always welcome here. A gentle subscribe is more than enough. We'll keep going just after this. The next part is where choices begin to take shape. Luis was already at Joe's when I arrived. 6:30 a.m. The air outside still carried that sharp winter bite. Inside, the coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and old wood, a kind of comfort I hadn't felt in weeks. He looked tired, real tired, the kind of tired you don't just get from lack of sleep, but from knowing something's not right and not being able to talk about it. I didn't even sit down before I said it. They're phasing me out. He exhaled through his nose. No surprise, just confirmation. I figured, he said. They've been asking me weird questions. Stuff about your systems. Asking me to explain things I don't usually touch. He looked away. Ashamed. I should have told you. I shook my head. No blame. You've got a family. A mortgage. I get it. We sat in silence for a moment. The low hum of morning traffic just starting to build outside. Then Luis asked quietly, "What's your plan?" Funny thing, I hadn't even realized I had one until that moment. But something clicked. Right then and there. Something clear. Solid. They think everything's in the documentation, I said, voice low. But we both know it's not. Luis leaned in. You mean the custom tools? I nodded. The patches. The system monitors. The client interface. No one else fully understands them. He murmured. That's the point. I replied. They're not in any manual. I built those in the margins nights. Weekends. They're mine. He looked at me. Not with fear. Not with pity. With understanding. I'm not going to sabotage anything, I said. Slowly. But I'm also not going to give away what's mine, not without making sure I'm protected. Luis nodded. Once. Firm. I'll help you, he said. I looked him in the eye. Why? He paused, then shrugged. Because they think we're all replaceable. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. Most people came in early, coffee in hand, murmuring about what exciting transition might mean. I already knew. The room buzzed with anticipation. But I felt strangely calm, like standing in the eye of a storm. I found my usual spot in the back corner. Watched. Preston took the stage. All business. His suit was a little too sharp. His smile too carefully neutral. Today, we mark an exciting chapter for Riverton. He began. Technology continues to evolve. And so must we. And then came the line I'd already memorized. Derek has been instrumental in building our IT infrastructure. And we are deeply grateful for his contributions. He never looked at me. As we transitioned leadership to Nathan Blake over the next 6 weeks, murmurs swept through the crowd. The IT team looked stunned. Vanessa turned toward me across the room, her eyes searching mine. I gave her a small, steady nod. I was fine. Or, pretending well enough. Nathan stood beside Preston, smiling politely. Like this wasn't a coup dressed as celebration. I kept my face unreadable. But inside, a different version of me. The one who'd built every server. Who'd written every contingency plan, stood up, and started counting down. After the meeting, I walked straight to HR, asked for a sit-down with Preston and Diane, the company's HR director. They obliged, maybe too quickly. We met in a small, airless conference room with motivational quotes on the walls. Diane slid a folder toward me like it was a peace offering. I just want to clarify something. I began. Some of the systems Nathan will inherit were built entirely by me, outside of work hours, on my own framework, my own time, my own code. Diane's smile didn't reach her eyes. Your employment contract is clear, she said. Anything developed during your time here is company property. Not everything, I said, keeping my voice even. The System Sync interface was developed before I joined Riverton. I licensed it to the company under limited use. It's in the original agreement clause. 6. Preston shifted in his chair. That caught him. That was 10 years ago. Derek, he said. The company has changed. So has System Sync. Every update, every integration, was still built on my original code. I replied, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want fair compensation for my intellectual property. They exchanged glances. Stalling. We'll look into it, Preston said. Of course, I replied, standing. In the meantime, I'll focus on the transition. Outside that sterile room, the air tasted different. They thought they could sweep this under the rug. They didn't know I'd already begun lifting it. The next morning, I got an automated email from IT security. Subject line, access rights adjustment, transition protocol. My credentials for the development servers had been revoked. No explanation. Just standard procedure. They claimed, but I knew exactly what it was. Another quiet erasure. One more wall built between me and the thing I created. Later that day, Nathan scheduled a team meeting. I wasn't invited. That had never happened before. I showed up anyway. He was standing at the whiteboard, talking about network streamlining, diagrams, arrows, big words like efficiency and modularity. It was the kind of pitch you give when you've read articles but never touched real systems. "Derek," he said when he noticed me in the doorway. "I'm glad you could join us." I leaned against the frame. "Wasn't on my calendar." Nathan smiled. "All diplomacy. Oversight." "I'm sure." I looked at the whiteboard. "You're changing the main production floor protocols." He nodded. "We're simplifying. Too many redundancies." Those protocols weren't just extras. They were hand-built solutions. Lines of code that had saved this company more times than they realized. They're designed to prevent machine failures during peak load. I said, evenly. Removing them risks a cascade shutdown. Nathan shrugged. Modern systems don't need such complex workarounds. Then, Vanessa spoke her voice, calm but clear. "They're not workarounds," she said. "They're adaptations. Derek implemented them after the 2018 meltdown. Without them, we'd have lost line 2 for weeks." Silence. For a second, I thought Nathan might listen, but he didn't. "Well, I appreciate the historical perspective," he said, "but we're moving forward." That afternoon, legal sent me another letter. The company was asserting full ownership over all systems, including System Sync. They cited some vague clause about integrated technologies. And then came the insult. A $5. Zero technology acquisition bonus. $5,000 for 10 years of sweat, blood, and code. I didn't even reply. Not yet. Because that night, I discovered something worse. Nathan had been scheduling one-on-one meetings with my entire team. Not for transition, for evaluation. He was deciding who stayed and who was expendable. Luis texted me after his. He asked if your systems were necessary. Or just overcomplicated. Fishing for weakness. They weren't just replacing me. They were reprogramming the culture I built, trying to erase the DNA I had written into every line of code. Every habit. Every backup. Every safeguard. But code has memory. And so do people. It started with an email. A supplier I'd worked with for years messaged my personal account. They were confused about a new licensing agreement Riverton had sent over. An updated version, one I had never seen. One I hadn't authorized. I opened the attachment. It wasn't just new language. It was a complete transfer of my custom supplier integrations to a third-party vendor. A startup. Nathan's former classmate's startup. And the signature on the deal, Preston's. They weren't just replacing me. They were selling off the systems I built, the ones they had no right to sell. Like I was a chapter they could rip out and rewrite in someone else's name. I needed leverage. Fast. I tried logging into the backup servers to retrieve the original version of System Sync. My credentials were revoked. Total lockout. Game on. I opened my old contact list and found a name I hadn't seen in years. Darren Phillips. A network security consultant. Smart. Discreet. The kind of guy who could trace ghosts in digital shadows. We met at a diner just off the highway. Cheap coffee. Cracked vinyl booths. The kind of place Preston wouldn't be caught dead in. I told him everything. He listened, nodding slowly. "Legally, you're in a gray zone," he said. "But something doesn't add up." "What do you mean?" "If they're planning to replace you, fine. But why now? The company's stable. Revenue's up. No big scandal." He was right. There had to be a reason for the urgency. A deeper motive. "Let me die around," Darren offered. "Just passive info gathering. Nothing illegal." 2 days later, he called me. 11:04 p.m. "You need to see this." Darren's voice was low. "Serious. I found something. You were right. It's not just about replacement." He sent over a folder of SEC filings and internal financial summaries. Riverton was preparing for acquisition. TechCore Industries, a Boston-based manufacturing conglomerate. Big, ruthless, strategic. They're in late-stage talks. Darren said, TechCore wants to buy Riverton, but the deal hinges on a few key conditions. He clicked through slides like an auditor on trial. Condition 1. Demonstrate a modernized technical infrastructure. Condition 2. Show transitional leadership. They need Riverton to look plug-and-play before signing. So that's why. I wasn't being phased out because I was obsolete. I was being erased because my systems made the company look too dependent on me. Too custom. Too personal. Too human. But it got worse. Look at this, Darren said. Harrison cashed out most of his shares last quarter, and Preston stands to receive a substantial payout if the deal goes through. Bonus. Executive seat at TechCore. Golden parachute stuff. They weren't just selling the company. They were gutting it, polishing it, and presenting it like showroom inventory. I leaned back, letting it all sink in. While I was patching a massive security breach 6 months ago, they were already interviewing Nathan. While I was working through weekends, they were drawing up press releases. But the final blow, emails. Darren had found internal messages between Preston and Harrison, dating back over 6 months. We need a cleaner transition. Derek's system is too entangled with legacy. Bring Nathan in quietly. I closed the laptop. No anger this time. Just clarity. This wasn't corporate strategy. It was betrayal, dressed in suits and signatures. That night, I drove to the old industrial park where I first designed System Sync, back when it was just sketches and coffee-stained notes. I sat in the car until morning, watching the sky shift from black to ash to pale gold. When I got home, I found an old hard drive buried at the back of my closet. Plugged it in, waited for it to boot up. There it was. The original System Sync code, pre-Riverton, dated, time-stamped, documented, 8 months before I joined the company. And better yet, the emails from Preston, asking me to integrate System Sync with their operations, promising we'd formalize ownership once things settled. He had trusted him. He had planned to take everything. Not anymore. The next day, I was called into another meeting. Preston, Nathan, Diane from HR. No smiles this time. Not performance. We're accelerating the transition. Preston said flatly, your last day will be next Friday. 2 weeks instead of 6. I nodded. Any particular reason Nathan has demonstrated exceptional capability? Diane replied, her voice smooth as stone. And frankly, Derek, your attitude hasn't been conducive to a smooth handover. I didn't flinch. Just leaned forward. Calm. I see. And System Sync. Have you had a chance to review the original agreements? Preston's face tightened. Our legal team has determined that all integrated systems fall under company ownership. He said, the separation package is generous. I suggest you take it. I stood up. I'll have my lawyer review everything. Preston's voice dropped. Don't make this difficult. Derek, it won't change the outcome. Diane added. I smiled genuinely. We'll see. That night, I texted Luis Plan B. Tonight, 7 hours later, in the dark corner of a grocery store parking lot, Luis handed me a flash drive. Everything you asked for, he said. Original code bases, deployment logs, authentication keys. I held it like it was made of glass. Why are you helping me? I asked. Luis looked me in the eye. Because they think we're all replaceable. That weekend, I didn't rest. I documented everything. The original System Sync code, Preston's emails, the dated contracts, proof that every major update was built off my pre-employment architecture on Monday. I filed 3 provisional patents, critical components of the software that made System Sync uniquely compatible with Riverton's infrastructure. I didn't patent the whole system, just the parts that made it work. I also reached out to Darren. We set up a secure offsite server. I uploaded a full standalone version of System Sync, ready to run, ready to survive. By Tuesday, I'd completed every training Nathan had requested. Saturday, through his planning meetings, answered questions, smiled. On the surface, I was a model employee. Inside, I was sealing the vault. Wednesday morning, I opened my inbox. An email from TechCore. Subject line, potential strategic collaboration. I read it twice. Then I called their VP of operations. Friday morning, I turned in my badge, signed the final paperwork, declined the celebration lunch Nathan had scheduled, which, ironically, I wasn't even officially invited to. Preston passed me in the hallway. No handshake, no eye contact, just a nod. Barely. 11 years. Reduced to that, I walked to my car with nothing in my hands but everything in place. At 9:17 a.m., just as the production floor shifted into peak operation, it began. Every instance of system sync across all three facilities displayed the same message: license expired. Please contact the developer to renew. By 9:20. Line 1 halted. By 9:45. All three production lines were offline. At 10:30, my phone rang. Preston, what the hell did you do? He snapped. I didn't do anything. I said calmly. The software license expired. You sabotaged the company, its standard license management. Check the integration agreement. Clause C. 7 you were licensing system sync. You never bought it. Silence. I've already sent an updated licensing contract to your legal team. I added. Simple terms. Recognition of ownership. Fair compensation. A non-disclosure agreement regarding my departure. That's extortion. He hissed. That's business. I replied. These things happen. By 3:00 p.m., their lawyers had reviewed the documentation. By 5:00 p.m., the new agreement was signed. And Riverton was running again, but this time, on my terms. 3 days later, I sat across from TechCore's VP of operations. We met in their downtown office glass walls. Minimalist furniture. A view of the whole city laid out like circuitry. He slid a contract across the table. We're still acquiring Riverton, he said, but we want you to lead the technical integration as a consultant, not an employee. I read the numbers. Double my old salary. Full autonomy. Remote if I wanted. What about Nathan? I asked. The VP's mouth tightened. Just slightly. Mr. Blake will be transitioning to other opportunities. I signed that afternoon. 2 weeks later, Louise called. Nathan's gone. Quiet exit. No announcement. The official story. He left to pursue new ventures. The truth. 3 major clients threatened to walk after repeated failures under his changes. As for Preston, he remained CEO through the acquisition. But at TechCore, his role was ceremonial. No team. No decision-making power. Just a title on a glass door in a quiet hallway. I thought I'd feel triumph. I didn't. What I felt was quieter. Heavier. Certainty. That I'd done what I had to do. That I hadn't burned the house down, I'd just turned off the power until someone acknowledged who built the wiring. I used my first consulting check to put a down payment on a small cabin near the lake. Nothing grand, but peaceful, with a deck that faced the sunset. A place where things could grow again. 3 months later, Vanessa joined my consulting team. Then Luis. Eventually, half my old department came with them. Not working for me, working with me. We weren't rebuilding what Riverton lost. We were building what they never saw coming. About a year later, I ran into Preston at a restaurant downtown. He saw me, started to turn away, then stopped. He walked over. You won, he said quietly. I looked at him, really looked. The tired eyes. The suit just a little wrinkled. The absence of weight behind his voice. It wasn't about winning. I said, it was about knowing what I'm worth. He nodded once, then walked away. I sat there a long time, watching the lights blink across the river, thinking about systems, the ones we build, the ones we break, and the ones that outlast us all. I used to think my worth was in uptime reports and code stability. Now, I know better. value isn't in what you build, it's in knowing when not to give it away. And in the people who build it with you. If something in Derek's story stayed with you, if it reminded you of a moment you almost lost your own name in someone else's story, thank you for listening. Voices, stories, is where we keep stories like this, breathing. If you want to keep hearing them, just leave a comment or quietly hit subscribe. Your presence here already means everything.